Viewing pleasure later on. Thank you, Bonnie Williams, my executive producer, who's shaking her fist at me right now to make sure that I'm recording this. Michael Brown, the Michael Brown Show, at M.A. Brown DC, at M.A. Brown DC. Good evening, sir. It's a tremendous honor and pleasure always to have you with us.
Ken and Bonnie, always a pleasure as well.
No, you know you meant Bonnie. You just threw my name in there for the goodness. All right.
By the way, your introduction left out something when you kind of laid out all the different things. When you talked about fear and all these other, you forgot to talk about white violent supremacist groups.
Like
that.
Black Lives Matter.
You forgot to mention that.
Oh, like Black Lives Matter.
You forgot to mention that.
I'm sorry.
White supremacist violent groups. You forgot to mention those.
I forgot to mention Black Lives Matter and Antifa because Black Lives Matter is
Black Lives Matter is a positive group that stands up for civil and unjust justice. So Black Lives Matter, you should be congratulating them for the great work they have done.
Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization that believes in destroying the black man as well as eradicating fraternity throughout the world. In addition, eliminating all of the constructs of Western civilization. And finally, they believe in installing a Marxist system throughout all of the world in which we bow down at the feet of a few to be ruled over. Yeah, I don't want to congratulate them for
anything. It sounds like you're describing white supremacist violent groups. What you just described is what they want to do.
Well, it's amazing I described that because guess who runs Black Lives Matter? White groups. White liberal groups run Black Lives Matter. That is very, very accurate.
They may get some of their funding, yes.
No.
Nothing wrong with getting funding from different types of people. What's wrong with diversity?
But it's nothing wrong with diversity unless you're going to be honest. That is actually the white liberal progressive, violent groups that are out there that wish to extol their supremacist viewpoints upon the American people. Yeah, let's just be honest. That's what it is. And once again,
keep up the good work and way to stand up against folks that loot and cause violence. Because
they are the ones
that stands for the right things. Good job, Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter and Antifa are combined in terms of rioting and looting in the first place. So
that's absolutely incorrect.
That is not incorrect. And listen, I know you are along with George Soros on the Facebook Community Standards team, but I'm going to tell you the truth. They are a terrorist organization, and their viewpoint is the destruction of America. They make no never minds about that.
The point is to make America stronger with its diversity and treating people fairly when it comes to both criminal justice and police. That's what their mission is.
It's to make America weak again. That's basically what their mission is. Bonnie Williams says, "Hi, Michael Brown. Hi. Keep it to yourselves."
Bonnie's a superstar.
Yes, she is. I can agree with that. Ladies and gentlemen.
Did she get her raise yet?
Yeah, it's in the mail. It's in the mail. Trust me, I'm working on that. Michael Brown, I played before you came on that the Department of Justice confirmed this afternoon that Hunter Biden and his business associates are under investigation for money laundering. And one of his business associates happens to be someone named the Big Guy, who Tony Babaluski came out earlier last week and stated that the Big Guy is Joe Biden himself. I want you right now to tell America that the information that has been presented by Rudy Giuliani, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation is Russian disinformation, and it's absolutely untrue. And that it cannot stand in the court of law. Go right ahead. Tell us that.
Not only is it untrue, and I never thought I'd use this term because I never say it, but this is the time to say it. It's fake news. The Republican-controlled Senate Intel Committee turned over every stone, every rock, every investigator, every confidential informant to try to find something on Hunter Biden and couldn't. Nothing was there. It was all fabricated, all fake from Giuliani and his little spies. Giuliani's actually getting used like a pawn. So forget what Giuliani has to say. The mainstream media hasn't picked up on this. No one has confirmed it. It's baloney. And even if the Justice Department is doing some kind of investigation, they have zero credibility. I would bet the FBI is not involved. So it's not true. And if this is their big October surprise to try to prevent Biden from being president, too late, far too late, too little.
So,
and we'll see at the inauguration when Joe Biden gets sworn in.
Let me just ask you this question, just to begin some things. In 1988, when Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race, the first time he ran, he dropped out for what particular reasons?
Well, Mike Dukakis was doing very well. He became the nominee.
No, that's not the reasons. He dropped out because of plagiarism, and he said that it was a deflection, it was a defect in his character. So there is already the establishment of his first presidential run that he is a liar.
I know the right is not now trying to start a character debate between 45 and Biden. If that's the route they're taking, they're definitely going to lose. If that's the case.
Well, based on what we know, and you all have done everything up to an impeachment to turn over every rock possible against Donald Trump, and still he stands.
But he was impeached.
That's a political exercise of punditry on the House, because when it went to the Senate,
the right can call it what it wants, but he was impeached.
You can say what you want, but we've already established the fact that even Joe Biden says that he himself is a liar and a plagiarist. We come back almost 30 years later, and we now know that Hunter Biden has been used by Joe Biden to carry money from foreign countries, China, Iran, Turkey, you name it, Afghanistan, you name it. He's had his pocket filled to the brim.
I think we both would realize if Jeff Sessions, when he was Attorney General, and Barr had any sniff that were true several years ago when 45 wanted to indict all of his political enemies, we would have already been down this road. The Senate Republican-controlled Intel Committee has already said there's nothing there, move on. So if this credibility lacked, Justice Department wants to feel free to go ahead and throw out some big October surprise about some fake investigation. Feel free to do it.
A fake investigation, not unlike what the House attempted to do in terms of trying to impeach the President of the United States. A real fake, because the Russia. We spent 42.
The right doesn't like to realize that, but he's an impeached president.
We spent $42 million trying to impeach the President of the United States.
How many million did you spend on Benghazi, which was nothing but a political witch hunt?
Well, wait a minute. Wasn't Benghazi the fault of Hillary Rodham Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama?
That Senate committee headed up by Congressman Gowdy, they couldn't find anything.
Well,
they had hours and hours and days and weeks of hearings, but nothing came of it.
Well, is it true that the State Department, as well as the Department of Justice, withheld information from the House?
I'm not aware of that.
Oh, I bet you're not. But they did. So quite frankly...
Well, obviously, the Republican Congressman Gowdy didn't feel that way.
Well, he is of his own opinion, but nonetheless, if documentation is not... And you're an attorney. If documentation is not submitted to you, and you are the defense... Wouldn't you be upset with the prosecution?
Well, that's where the judge comes in, and that's what Gowdy was. Gowdy was the judge and controller of that hearing.
Okay, wait a minute. So what you're saying is that the House and the Senate have law enforcement capabilities that they can actually put people in?
Law enforcement capabilities, but
no, thank you. Thank you.
With that subpoena power, does give them the ability to get the information they requested.
So it does not mean it's always turned over to them, and you know that's true. Am I correct in that regard?
Well, we've seen that for the last 4 years from this administration.
Did we see it for the last 8 years of the Obama administration?
Corrupt administration in history. Yes, we've seen that.
Yes, we have on every side. There you go.
They wouldn't even send people to hearings. Poor Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci, who are doing the best they can to educate Americans and give them the information they need. And then you have this administration and this White House that are basically killing like a quarter of a million people.
Oh,
it's
so
a shame.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that Donald Trump is responsible for the deaths of 250,000 Americans? Is that what you're saying?
Responsible is probably not the word I would use.
You just used it.
But if he had taken control of this pandemic, honestly, and using science, less people would have died. Whether he's responsible for that, I can't say.
You just did.
Less people would have died if he had done his job.
You know, you played the word card so well in this particular process, because you just said that he was responsible for that. And you know, I have to do this to you because the Wall Street Journal, after the debate last week, made this abundantly clear about the charge that you and Mr. Biden made against Donald Trump, that he solely was responsible for the deaths of over 200,000 Americans. They said, quote, Mr. Biden is neither honest nor decent. So,
are we talking about the Fox News-owned Wall Street Journal?
We are talking about the Wall Street Journal, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, that one, okay.
Well, I don't know if they own it or not, but quite frankly, Mr. Biden is neither honest nor decent. And one of the most...
I guess you can deal with that after he becomes president.
Well, I don't think he actually will become president. And one of the most disturbing things is that you would vote for a man who used his addicted son, who is a pedophile, to use him as a bag man, collecting over $30 million from countries like Russia, where the mayor of Russia gave Hunter Biden over $3 million, money that was taken from Burisma, China. I know you're yawning. Go for it. But quite frankly, I think it's very, very disconcerting.
What it is absolutely rude. And just because folks have money doesn't mean they have class. And I'm talking about 45. So that kind of allegation against someone is just the epitome of gutter politics. And that's how he wants to play it. And that shows the kind of class that Joe Biden have and Senator Harris.
Okay, so gutter...
When they were attacked, when their families are attacked, they don't hit back to 45's family that has their own drama, their own skeletons, their own corruption. And you know what? Joe Biden stays above that fray, and that's why he's going to be a great president. And that's why he's winning suburban women and seniors, because 45 doesn't know how to act.
And he's losing a lot of decent, honest Americans with not only his fact. And let me just get you to answer this, since you're a surrogate of Joe Biden. Does the FBI and the Department of Justice have Hunter Biden's laptop? Is that Hunter Biden's laptop?
I don't think we've had any confirmation.
Yes, they gave it this afternoon. No, I played it for you.
In a computer repair store by mistake, and all of a sudden it pops up. I don't think anybody has any confirmation about any of this.
Okay, well, since you said that, and I wasn't going to play it, let me play it again, ladies and gentlemen, during this segment, so that you know.
We've heard it.
Oh, you heard it. So why don't you just admit that it is his laptop?
How are we supposed to admit this laptop from that recording you want to
Jill Biden admits it's his laptop. Let me
do that recording where Joe Biden says it's his laptop.
Okay, well, let me just show you real quick. Thank you so much for asking, because you are the type of definite skeptic that I love to entertain with wisdom. Here we go. This is what Jill Biden said. This election is about the American people. The American people don't want to hear these smears against my family. The American people are struggling right now. Whatever is on Hunter's laptop is not important. These are old stories that have nothing to do with the healing of this country. She admits it's Hunter's laptop. The FBI admits it's Hunter's laptop.
I got a recording of her voice. I'm not sure. I would, of course, challenge some of those quotes.
Of course you would.
I didn't hear anywhere where she said it was Hunter's laptop. All she said was whatever laptop they think they have.
That's not what they said.
What that means.
You can try that in court if you want, but this is what it was said. Whatever is on Hunter's laptop is not important. Ladies and gentlemen, you got it right there. Not only... Now, let me ask you something, because you're a greater legal mind than I ever will be on my best birthday. So let me ask you something. If, on my behalf, you called the computer store and asked for Hunter's laptop back, would that be admissible to the fact that it is Hunter's laptop?
If Hunter called this particular store or repair place and said, "Oh, let me have it back," that certainly would mean that something, sure. But I haven't heard that either. This all
of course,
it's in the right.
You know what's a
link into this weird laptop that Rudy Giuliani probably found in his garage and said, "Look, this is Hunter's." This is all made up nonsense.
It's not made up nonsense because the attorney did just that. Days after it was released that the FBI had possession of the laptop.
What
So
you and the right and 45 and Breitbart and Fox News are trying to create is this Jim Comey moment from 2016 against Hillary Clinton to help this guy get across the finish line. He's not going to have enough electoral votes. He probably will lose Florida. He may even lose Georgia, which would be a shame. The fact that Texas is even in play is a disgrace for the Republican Party. The blue wall is going to be built back with Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. He's not going to win Minnesota. There is no pathway for 45 to win, so they're trying to figure out something to create a situation that hurts him. It's not going to happen. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris will be the next president, vice president of the United States next Tuesday.
Well, according to Joe Biden, it would be Kamala Harris that would be president of the United States. But let me just play this for my audience regarding the economy. I want to talk with you about that real quick. This is Joe Biden and Barack Hussein Obama. And for those of you who are concerned about middle names, Donald John Trump, Joseph Robinette Biden, and Barack Hussein Obama. Here we go. A conversation between Barack Hussein Obama and Joseph Robinette Biden on the economy.
We had seen a historic financial crisis. Irresponsibility on Wall Street had spread out to Main Street. You know, we had to move fast, not just in 100 days. We had to move in the first month to get the Recovery Act passed. We're now in a situation where not only we've got an economic crisis, but we also have a public health crisis to boot. Tell me a little bit about how you're seeing the current economic crisis and how you're thinking about the economy right now.
Well, Mr. President, there's three pieces I see. One, we have got to sustain and keep people from going under forever. There's already 10,000 businesses that are not likely to open again, a significant number of small business and minority businesses.
Right.
Number two, when they're able to come back, they not only are able to keep their folks employed on a payroll, but they're able to cover overhead. They're able to cover the additional expenses. For example, the idea you're going to open without social distancing, masks, tests, and all these things,
right,
that costs a lot of money.
Those are added costs for
They're
small
added
businesses.
cost.
Right.
And they should be able to have that added cost to be able to stay open
Right.
for the good of the country. But the next stage of this is going to be, if we're able to, if the stimulus can keep people afloat, then we have to deal with recovery.
Right.
And the recovery is building back, but not just building back, as you've been talking, now I've been talking about, building back better. We have to change the way in which we deal with allowing people an opportunity to make a living.
Right.
That includes child care. That includes making significant investments in infrastructure so people can make not just a living wage, but a union wage, making sure we build up an entire new public health system, and making sure everybody has health care. And well, now we have a chance. We can add a public option now.
Right.
But this guy's in court in the middle of a pandemic trying to take away the protection for 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions. I don't think he has any sense of empathy. I don't think he can associate at all.
That is Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is saying that somehow adding a public option on the table is going to change American healthcare overall, that the government has a better way of managing your personal decisions and your personal life than any. And I just want to ask you, before we get started in terms of this discussion, because both of them had an economic as well as public health issue to deal with during the 8 years that they were in office. Did they ever see the GDP grow 33% in one quarter?
Before I answer that question, just so you know, I know there was some technical issues. I didn't hear the recording you played for your viewers.
Okay.
But it's interesting. Some economists talk about that GDP growth today, what was it, 33%, I think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that seems to be relative to what he calls, obviously, a V comeback, when it was really a K comeback, for where we are in this recession, because we're in a recession. Yes, there's been some rise in the GDP because of where we were. Not that he's done anything great and outstanding. Keep in mind, he inherited an incredible economy that he blew it because he didn't handle the COVID crisis properly. So, okay, yes, no one can debate whether there was 33% growth, but growth from what? Growth from now that we're in a recession? Yes.
Let me ask you something, because both those gentlemen had an economic crisis, and their policies on taxation, regulation, financial financial investment or tax and spend, never created a 33% GDP, nor were they able to turn things around in 2 quarters after a major recession. I want to get your understanding here. How is it that Joe Biden would be a better person to handle our economy than someone who has had 2 consecutive quarters of plus 30% GDP growth? Explain that to me.
Absolutely. He was actually one of the standard bearers for getting us out of that Bush recession. Single-handedly saved the automobile industry, clearly with the bailout there, and frankly got us on the trajectory that 45 inherited and then messed up with his spending like crazy. Our debt has never been this high. With a stupid tax cut. So when you put all those pieces in, he blew the great economy at. He didn't actually have to do anything, and his numbers would have been great. But he chose to fiddle around because he didn't want Obama getting all this credit.
Oh, okay.
Because he fiddled with the economy, he blew it. He didn't handle COVID properly, and because of that, the economy is now suffering, and we're in a recession.
Now, I just want to admit to those individuals that while Michael Brown may not have been able to hear that, Michael Brown does have access to the video as it was sent to him before the show, and he can watch it at his own purview. I do want to say this to you all, that no American president has ever had 2 consecutive quarters of plus 30 GDP growth in American history.
From the basement, it's easy.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't Barack Obama say that we were coming from the basement regarding the Great Recession?
Rose it up gradually.
No. Okay. Wait a minute. Do we want a prolonged recession as under the Obama administration, or do you want people to get back to work?
Fix this, get control of this virus. There will be hard economic times.
Can you name a virus that people have ever controlled?
No, but there are
Thank
ways
you.
to do the best you
No, thank you.
By wearing masks, social distancing.
Number two.
Not having these stupid, dumb rallies.
Who created
dumb events at the White House.
Michael Brown?
You're actually a super spreader event.
Michael Brown.
There are ways to contain it. This administration isn't doing it.
Michael Brown, you just stated that no one has ever controlled nor contained a virus before. So,
no, I said you could do better.
Stay right where you stay in that lane. Number two.
Trust the data. Trust the information that's given to you. This administration refuses to do it.
Number two, if you were president of the United States, knowing that we are in a very sensitive economic period, would you, number one, raise taxes, and number two, would you lock down the nation? Go ahead and tell me.
Well, I think there's several ways to answer that question, because it's a lot to unpack. First of all, there is a way. First, you have to have national leadership from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay.
And the first thing you do is you say, because you can't use the word mandate, I strongly advise that we all wear masks out in public. Because if you wear those masks, the restaurants can stay open. Our stores can be open. People can kind of go about their normal activities, social distance, hygiene. But if you don't wear those masks, if you do have stupid rallies, if you do have super spreader events, then yes, you're going to continue to have this virus go. Because keep in mind, now we're breaking records. This 45, which is just lying to the American people, talking about, we're rounding a corner. We're not rounding any corner. It's getting worse.
How is it getting worse?
People in his own rallies are getting sick.
How is it getting...
Carolina, Nebraska, they're getting sick because they're going to a place where there's no social distancing, no mask. So you need a leader that can come in, create an environment of fellow Americans being patriotic and protecting themselves, which will help the economy.
So, Michael Brown, I want you to answer me this. Joe Biden comes into office and he requires that every American will wear a mask and that the country is locked down. Will this secure the fact that we will control the virus and that no one will get sick and that no one will die? Please explain that to us.
Well, first of all, I haven't heard him use the term lockdown.
He did. During the debate, he did.
45 locked the country down as well. So it's not as if 45 did not lock it down. He did. He just didn't do it long enough. And then when we came out, he didn't make sure that he didn't follow the science, follow the doctors, and follow the data to make sure we could keep it down as much as possible. Now these spikes are out of control. And President Biden is going to have to do some drastic things to get control of this darn thing. And once it's under control, the economy can grow properly.
Okay, so what you're telling me is, because you never really, like Biden, you used a whole lot of generalities, but you never explained exactly how people who, wait a minute, let me just say this. How people won't get sick, people won't die. And in fact, the CDC has announced that the mortality rate on this particular virus has fallen from its peak 85%. People are not dying anymore from this particular virus at the level that they were before. And in fact, people who get sick from this particular virus recover at a rate of 99.99%.
I realize Breitbart and Dr. Atlas would like folks to believe the data that they're spewing out. 938 people died yesterday. That's almost 1,000. That's what we're dying in March and April and May. So it hasn't gone down. And now that these spikes are going up, it's going to get worse. This
again,
is terrible.
Again, Michael.
This is awful. They should be ashamed of themselves of how they've handled this with destroying families like they've destroyed them, hurting this healthcare system, destroying the economics of hospitals. They have really botched this up. During the
course of this conversation, you blamed Donald Trump for the deaths of 250,000 people, and then you said it wasn't his fault. And then you tell me that...
Well, I'm not backpedaling off of that.
Well, you did.
If we'd done a better job controlling COVID, less people would have
And
died.
then you say that Joe Biden can control a virus and admit at the same time that a virus is uncontrollable. You see, it's that double speak.
You can do better with leadership.
What leadership? What would you do? What would you do? You talking about a man who made it possible for a vaccine to be made in 6 months versus 3 to 4 years. You're talking about a man who had.
He did nothing. Those were our great pharmaceutical companies that did that. He did nothing.
He moved the regulations out of the.
What's the regulation?
He moved warp speed. Allowed the regulations to be removed so that they could create a vaccine, not in 3 to 4 years.
Say that the vaccine is good, then folks will take it. If Trump says it's good, no one will take it.
Well, I doubt that very seriously, since you have several industries like transportation and as well the retail and hospitality industry that would love to have people who have those vaccines. And also, you have a military that's prepared to disseminate over 100 million vials of that across the country as soon as it becomes available. What? But tell me, Michael. Michael, when Joe Biden debated Donald Trump in the last debate, he could not say one thing that he would have done differently. We're talking about a man who said, "Don't take the virus seriously."
He would have, again, can't use the word mandate, but strongly, and set an example like he's doing in his campaign of wearing a mask all the time when you're in public and near people.
Okay, so
this president didn't set that example, and when he didn't set that example, all his little supporters, this little 30%, 31% base said, if he's not going to wear one, I'm not going to wear one.
But again,
the spread continued.
Michael,
not only is 45 ridiculous, his supporters are ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're unpatriotic and they don't like America.
Oh, and that's amazing because you all are supporters of Black Lives Matter and Antifa. But let me just say this to you very quickly because amazingly,
and they're supporters of white supremacist groups.
We're not. But let me just say this to you because you, like Joe Biden, have been unable to point out one thing you would have done differently from what Donald Trump has already done.
I just gave it to you.
You didn't.
Masks. Wear masks, please. And I'm not going to have rallies. I don't want to have super spreader events at the White House.
So
that's when you set an example. That's what he would have done differently.
Okay, so the CDC says that first and foremost, masks are not a impenetrable force against the virus itself. And also,
but that helps.
But also they say that 85% of the people that got the virus actually wore masks. So, wait a minute. Dr. Fauci is in charge of that CDC division. Dr. Fauci is in charge of that wing of the research.
Dr. Atlas, who no one believes. No one even knows what kind of doctor he is. His colleagues out west at Stanford have written letters saying he's never coming back. He should be fired. So forget Dr. Atlas. Forget what he has to say.
What I find most astonishing is that the Democrats have a great tendency to blame the world for the fears that it has, can offer no real solutions, and when solutions that are workable are working, complain that they are racist, discriminating, and that they're really not working. I want to ask you real quick. Let me just ask you real quick. Trayon White went to a protest with his fellow black Marxist Democrats in Ward 8 against the Gateway project that's being built, and they used racial slurs against the Hispanic males that were leaving the construction site. I want you right now to condemn Trayon White for what he said, and I want you to chastise him publicly for using vitriol against Hispanic people because they are working in the same place where blacks are working. Go ahead.
If Councilmember White and or any of his allies made comments, disgusting comments like that, absolutely wrong, and he should apologize. I don't know that that's the case. What I do know, and it's not certainly independent of Washington, D.C., but it's construction sites all over America where you do have a lot of African American workers that have been that have been frustrated by the fact they haven't gotten some of these jobs, and Latino workers have. That does not excuse using any kind of epithet against the Latino community, who are hardworking Americans and deserve all the benefits that America has. So if anyone did do that, it was wrong, and they absolutely should apologize.
So, Michael Brown, after you all have spent millions, and I'm talking tens and hundreds of millions of dollars of doing training, how is it that you all have left black Democrat males and females to the point where they feel that the only thing that they can do is express racial slurs against another group of people who are using those same training programs and getting into work opportunities? Please explain that to me.
I can't, because I don't know that occurred from folks like that. Again, anyone, take Councilmember White out, anyone that used that kind of language against Latino community or anyone is absolutely wrong. It's disgusting. And then wake your butt up, go down to the training center, and get the job properly. Don't blame anybody. Just do it the right way.
Can you all finally admit, as black Democrats, that you all have failed your fellow black Democrats when it comes to workforce development, economic development?
Actually, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Most of those dollars that are at DOES, which is Department of Employment Services, and training programs, I actually funded. And those dollars have been there, and I'm glad they're at those levels to make sure that people have an opportunity to succeed, whether you're Latino, African American, white, Native American, Martian, whatever you are, you should have an opportunity to get trained and get a job.
Hispanics are using it, and they're getting trained, and they're getting jobs. Why?
So are some African Americans.
Okay.
So are some white. That's not our challenge here. Mm-hmm. Our challenge is when some of these larger projects come up here in the District of Columbia, some of the jobs are actually coming from out of state. Folks are driving from North Carolina, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, clearly other closer jurisdictions, to take those jobs from D.C. workers, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white. That's the challenge, is how do we make sure the jobs go to actual D.C. residents?
Okay, so what you're saying is that only a certain group of people in a certain geography can do the work in these particular projects.
Our folks have first, whatever, for lack of a better term, first right of refusal. If you can't find that particular skill and vocation, okay, maybe then you can go outside and find what you need. But first, check in D.C. first and give them the D.C. residents first. So I understand the frustration of those folks that were at this particular protest. They shouldn't use disgusting language, but I understand their frustration.
Well, in finality here, then, has affirmative action and set-asides failed? Affirmative action and set-asides, has that failed the black worker?
No, I don't believe so.
Then why are they protesting in such a amazing fashion and using the vitriol that you proclaim that right ring people use?
I just think some of the frustration is actually misplaced. And I'll be as quick as I can. I know you're coming up to the end, to the break.
Yeah.
But some of that is misplaced because those particular jobs that I just mentioned, when you go to any construction site, don't take my word for it. When you're walking past a construction site, check out the license tags of those pickup trucks and trucks that are coming in from outside of D.C. to do the work. That's where the frustration should be, not with the Latino community.
Well, should we also do that with the public schools? Should we check license plates of people that drop off kids at a public school? Because a lot of kids...
That's so interesting. Supposedly our school system isn't that great, so I don't know why people are dropping their kids off here from other jurisdictions. Our school system is improving. It is doing better.
Oh, so you're okay then with people from outside Maryland and Virginia coming to our schools and...
DC's resident. Of course not.
No, but you just said, you need to stick to one thing, brother.
You shouldn't have your kids in DC schools.
You should stick to one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Brown, we love him and we adore him. We'll be talking with him next week after the Black Lives Matter and Antifa people begin to riot in the streets because Donald Trump has won in a landslide in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Brown. Love you, brother.
Biden Harris.
Yeah, see, that was uncalled for. Biden Harris. I want to let you know, Bonnie, that he chose to say Biden Harris than to say goodnight, Bonnie. I just want you to know that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more of the best right after this commercial break.
I started the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network in 2008, and we put this together for us. The concept was that if one of us armed citizens are involved in a self-defense incident, then we have a network of individuals behind that person in order to help them get through the legal fight, if necessary, after the incident. The concept is almost like a fraternal order of police union, perhaps even like AAA, where you would call for a wrecker if you needed it. But it's for the armed citizen. We only want well